Hello and welcome to everybody on Cloud Fitness. So in today's video of Python series, we are going to cover another topic which is nothing but tuples in Python. So in case you have not watched my previous videos of Python, I do recommend watching them because these are in series videos which will eventually help us to learn Python in depth and we will be able to solve a lot of problems in Python. So when we talk about tuples, what exactly are tuples? In the past I have talked about lists, dictionaries and sets, right? So that similar to that, tuples are also built-in data types in Python. Now when I talked about list, dictionary and set, I also told that these are nothing but these are called Python collections. So why they are called Python collections? Because they store collection of data. Right, so similarly tuple is also nothing but it is a data type in Python which is used to store collection of data. Now tuples are ordered, immutable and they allow duplicates. So all three keywords I have been talking about in my past videos for lists, dictionaries and sets. So I hope you understand what exactly does it mean. Ordered means here, like if I define the first element of my tuple to be 1, right, and the second element to be 5. So always when I'm going to access the element from the tuple, in that case my first element will always be 1 and my second element will always be 5. Right? So when we talked about sets in my previous video, you remember that sets are not ordered. Tuples are ordered. Lists are ordered. Right? So I'm just trying to revise the concepts as well. Now tuples are immutable. You cannot change the tuples. Right? You cannot change the tuples, but you can change the lists. Right? So lists are also ordered, tuples are also ordered, but the difference comes in this place that tuples are immutable. You cannot change them. Right? In list, you can change elements of a list. Right? So this is the typical difference between a tuple and a list. And list also allows duplicate and tuples also allows duplicate. So technically if you see, tuples and list are same, just one feature is very different, right, which is that tuples are immutable, and also how you create tuples, that is of course different, which we are going to see in today's video. So let's move on to the PyCharm editor and we are going to learn through each and every line of code how we can create a tuple, what functions we can use with tuple. So we'll go to our Python project which we have been working on from our past videos and we'll create a Python file here. Let me name it as tuple. Now and click enter, right? Alt shift dot to increase the size, to increase the font. And now when we talk about tuple, so let me create a tuple. Now to create a tuple I need a basket, right? So if you remember, I have been giving this baskets and fruit example. So basket is nothing but it is a variable which has to store the data, right? So let me name a variable, let's say tuple variable. Okay, so little big name. Let me say, so this is my tuple variable. Now here I need to add some data. So let me say I add Bhavna, then I say Bedi, right, and then I say cloud, right, in fact let me say cloud fitness here. Now if you see over there here, what is happening here? So this is a variable and this is a data that I want to store. Now if I open and close parenthesis over here, it becomes a tuple. Right? Now what is the difference between tuple and a variable? Essentially if I go here and if I make it as a square bracket, then what will happen? It becomes a list. But right now if I have this open and close parenthesis, then in that case it becomes nothing but a tuple, right? So if I want to say, let's say if I want to say print tuple variable, right, and also let me say print type of tuple variable, right? Let me run this. Let me select here the current file which I want to run and let me simply run it. Now you can see, so this is the tuple that got created and the class also you saw, this is nothing but a tuple. Now instead of that, let me put the square brackets over here and I rerun it. So the moment I rerun it, you can see it says class list, right? So now let me move it back to parenthesis and run it. So it is nothing but it is a tuple, right? So now if you want to understand the length of a tuple, we are again going to use the same length function which we have used for the dictionaries, lists, sets, right? So this length function can also give you the length of tuple variable. So you can see the length is 3 because it has 3 elements. Now, how can we access elements in a tuple? Let's see that, how we can access the elements of a tuple. So in our previous video, of the list, I have actually talked about that when you start from the left to the right in a list, right, what happens is the first, or even in a dictionary, the first element is called to be at index 0, second element at 1, third element at 2, fourth element at 3, and so on. But when you move from right to left, it starts with -1, and then this, the second last element becomes -2, the third last element becomes -3, and so on. So this is how your indexing happens, right? When we talk about list, right, when we actually talked about list, we also understood that how we can access the element in the list. We can access the elements in a list using these indexing methods, right? Using indexing, we can actually get the elements from a list. Now similar way we have to work with a tuple. So if I say, let's say print, right, let's say print tuple variable, and if I want to get, let's say, the first variable, right, the first element, I can simply say 0, and now if I run it, right, you can say I got Bhavna. Right, now let me copy it and let me paste it. Now if I want to know what is present at index 1, what is present at index 2, also let me put negative indexing as well, what is present at -2, right, and let me again put it over here, what is present at -1. So this is how you can access the element in a list, right? So you can see Bhavna, Bedi, cloud fitness, and tuple variable -1 gave you cloud fitness because it started from the right hand side, and Bedi is the second last element. So this is nothing but this is how you can access the elements from our tuple, right? So I hope you understood this part. Now let me comment this part and let me copy this and paste it down here. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you how you can join two tuples, right? How you can join two tuples. So let me in fact directly copy this itself, and let me put here, and I say variable 0, 2, right? So now here let me say 1, 2, Bedi, right? Now if I want to join two tuples, how do I do that? I can simply join two tuples using the plus symbol. I can say tuple variable plus tuple variable 0, 2. This is how we can actually go ahead and join two tuples. So if you see over here what has happened, right, the output, in the output you can see that elements from both the tuples have come in, and since tuples allows duplicate, Bedi has come 2 times, right? So I hope you understood this part. Now similarly here what I have shown you how you can join the two tuples. Now if you remember, we have created nested dictionaries, we have created nested list as well. Now how we can create nested tuples? You can create a nested tuple simply like this. So if I say tuple 3 is equal to, okay, now this is an empty tuple which I am creating, right? Tuple 0, 3 and nothing inside it, only the brackets, it just creates an empty tuple. Now inside this, if I say the first value is nothing but tuple variable, and then I say the second value is nothing but it is tuple variable 0, 2. Now what happens is tuple 3 gets created with 2 values. The first is tuple variable and the second is tuple variable 0, 2. Now if I say print tuple 0, 3, then what happens? Let me simply run it. You can actually see, so this is how you can create the nested tuple. So now you can see that you got 2 tuples inside a tuple, right? Now if I want to fetch the first element, right, how do I do that? Let me say 0 over here, right, and I run it. So I got the first element, which is nothing but the tuple, the whole tuple in itself, right? This is how I can actually work on tuples. Also remember that just like lists, right, in the nested list also, if you wanted to get the first value of a nested list, how we used to do, similar case we are going to do here. So if I again create an open and close square bracket, and if I want to traverse inside this particular tuple, how do I do that? I can again simply say 0. So the moment I do this Bhavna is going to come as an output. Now if I say 1, the second element from left is going to come, which is Bedi, right? Now if I say, let's say -2, right, let me put -1, right? Now I'm going to get cloud fitness, right? So I hope you understood this, how you can fetch the elements, how you can create a tuple inside a tuple, right? And now let me again comment this out and let me simply copy this so that we can use it further and come here. Now let's say you want to create a tuple with a single value. Can we do that? Now let me say single tuple. Let me create a single tuple. Okay, now I told you this is nothing but this is an empty tuple, right? Now in this tuple, let's say if I say let me put parrot. Okay, now if I say print type of single tuple. Now let me run it and show you what happens. So you can see it says class str, right? But we were trying to create a tuple. Now why did this class str happen? What happens is whenever you write in this particular syntax, if you have a single value, it gets converted into string by default until you specifically tell Python that it is a tuple. Now how do you specifically tell Python that it is a tuple in case you have a single value? You just put a comma over here. Now this is only the case when you are working with a single value, right? Only when you are working with a single value, you need to put a comma, a separate comma you need to put after that particular value, so that Python makes sure that even the single value is treated as a tuple. Now let me run this. Now you can actually see that the class is nothing but tuple now. So I hope you understood this. Now I also told you one thing, that these tuples are nothing but these tuples are immutable, right? Immutable basically means that they cannot be changed, right? So for example, I have this tuple which is nothing but a tuple variable. Now how we used to change a particular value in list, right? Same operations are going to apply over here. So if I say tuple variable, right, if I want to change at position 0, instead of Bhavna, let's say I want to make it as 9, right? And then let me say I want to print my tuple variable, right? Now if I do that, nothing is going to happen, right? Yeah, let me check this. So you can actually see over here what happened, right? You see this error. What does it say? Type error. Tuple object does not support item assignment, right? So this is what shows you that a tuple cannot be changed. A value inside a tuple cannot be changed. Now if I make it as a list, so let's do one thing. Let me make it as a list and show you again, because see, this thing I've covered in the list as well, but for a clarity, right? Let me simply run it. Now you can see the moment I changed it to a list and I ran it, it got changed. The first value became 9, right? So this is the difference between a list and a tuple. Now let me make it back to the tuple. So I hope you understood that how tuples are immutable. If you try to change a tuple, it is going to give you error, right? Now if you have a string value, right, or let's say you have a list value, you can convert it into a tuple all the time, right? So this is something. So let me say string value. I'm just trying to show you how we can use different things. So let me say getter. Okay, now this is a string value. Now if I want to, if I say print type of this string value, so you already know that it will be a string value from the past videos, right? It will be a string value only. But now if I want to make it as a tuple, can I do that? Yes, you can do that. How you are going to do that? You can simply say tuple. You can simply make use of this tuple constructor, and inside this tuple you can simply pass string value. Now moment you do that, let me print it as well. So the moment you do that, what will happen is it will get string value will get converted into a tuple. So if I run it over here, so you can see the first statement, my first statement, it gave me string, right? But my second statement actually changed it to a tuple. Now how did it change to a tuple? All the alphabets from this particular word, right, got converted into individual elements of our tuple. So this is something that you need to remember, that if you want to convert a string into tuple, this is how you can do that. And the moment you do it, each individual alphabet will get converted into each element of a tuple. Now similarly, we will see how a list gets converted into a tuple. List, let me say list T, and now let me just try to create a list. And let's say we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 inside the list. And now again, what I can do is I can simply say print, right? I can again use tuple function, right? Tuple function I can again use, and I can say list T. So the moment I do this, my list will get converted into a tuple. Now this is how it gets converted into a tuple. How do you know that? So you can always check the type, and as well as you can see these brackets as well. Instead of square, you have these curly brackets. Now the last thing that I want to tell you about a tuple, right? If you want to access each element of a tuple, how can you do that one by one? So let me just copy this particular tuple and print it over here. Now I can actually say for I in, right, for I in tuple variable, right, I can simply say print I, right? Now this is something you can do with list as well for everything. Basically we are going to cover for loop separately. So for loop, what happens is, so if you say for I, right, in tuple variable, so inside this particular basket, this I is going to travel, and it is going to say what is the first value which is present inside the basket, what is the second thing which is present inside the basket, what is the third thing present inside the basket, and I am going to print it. So this is how it works. But anyway, we are going to cover for loops later on as well. But remember that this for loops works like this in tuples, right? And it also works in your list as well, your set as well. So no worries on that. If you don't understand it, we are anyway going to cover it, right? And also one more thing that you can apply is, so let's say you have a tuple and you have a basket basically, right? And you have items in that basket, and you want to check whether apple is present in that basket or not. So how do you do that in case of tuple? You can simply say, let's say if Bhavna, right? Let's say if Bhavna in tuple variable, right? Tuple variable is the name of the basket, right? Now if you want to print something, right, you can simply print it. You can simply say okay, present, right? So this is also a method where you can check whether a particular element is present in this or not. So if I say x, right, if x in this print not present, right, something like this. So basically you can use these if conditions to check whether a particular element is present in that basket or in that variable or not. So if x in tuple variable, sorry, I think this should be present. So what actually happened over here, if you remember, if x in tuple variable print present, right, x is not present in this tuple, so this whole condition became false, and just because it became false, it did not execute my print statement. So this is actually the if condition which we are going to cover in the condition statements part. But I hope you get the idea of how we can check whether something is present or not. If this statement is true, then only it is going to go forward and execute whatever is inside it. Otherwise it is not going to execute. But this is something that we will discuss later on as well. So this is something that I wanted to cover in this video, the whole tuple thing. You know how you can work with tuples, and I hope you're liking these series because these are really very informative for data engineers, for software engineers, because when we work with the big data, you will understand the usage of all these data types. So thank you so much for being till here, and do remember to like, share and subscribe my channel.